Adamant and borderline obsessive about reps and how important reps are and practicing and being out there. For him to not be out there, how does he get to week one to be himself?
Oh, that's what's good when you're that obsessive about everything. I mean, when you're hurt, you can't go. But when you take every rep, every walkthrough, everything you do, you're just so deliberate in everything. When he's probably walking down the aisle to get married, he's probably thinking about his feet and how to do routes. No offense to Olivia, but he's obsessed with it. And so when you do get in these situations where you do get hurt and you can't go do all that stuff, at least he's put the work in before. So that stuff does come back fast. But I mean, he understands what it takes to play in this game, especially at the level he does. And not many people play at that level unless they are like that.
Here we are. How's it going? Court is in session. Ryan in Sacktown with you on a Jerry Reynolds Tuesday.
Holy moly, Jimbaboli.
Can't wait to talk to Jerry about the Kings schedule. In fact, if you would like to talk to Jerry, you can get in here. Put your questions in the chat. We will get to as many as we can. I am willing to take a few phone calls as well with Jerry. Just get in and out. Try to make it to the point as much as possible. I want to be respectful of his time, but an opportunity to come up with the one and only. A lot to talk about. 63 days until the start of the NBA season. Can't wait for that. By the way, we are brought to you by Bennett's Westside Grill in Rockland, located in the Blue Oaks Town Center. Make sure you go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Find out more about all three of their locations, their current specials. Pretty damn good right now. Not going to lie to you. 2-course meals, $30. 3 courses, $35, 7 days a week, just to mention one of the many specials that they offer. But get over to Bennett'sRestaurants.com to find out more about them. And a huge thanks for sponsoring today's show. Bane, I got you today, buddy. No buttons on the shirt. Nice try. Nice try. I appreciate it. Hey, wanted to let you know, too, tonight, Grant and I are going to be back for an 8 o'clock open forum show. Hoping you can make that. Last night's conversation really interesting. We can get into, in fact, I want to get into a little bit more of that here in a little bit to start the show off. The college football landscape is incredible to me right now. It's changing so much. And the fact that Alabama has hired a GM. Yes, think about this. A college football program has hired a general manager. And not just that, we had Mike Gundy's comments yesterday about the NIL process and everything that's going into that, and players and their agents. Isn't that weird to say? college football players and their agents. I'm fine with it. I am all for players getting paid with a caveat, which I'll get to in a little bit. At the top, we did hear from Kyle Shanahan, a little bit of a weird response, right? What's it like for Christian McCaffrey? Can he be ready for week 1 now that he's hurt, and he's taking mental reps while walking down the aisle? What? Anybody in here married? What were you thinking about as you were walking down the aisle? Or more importantly, as your other half was coming down the aisle? I mean, I'm a sports guy, but I don't think I was really thinking about routes, thinking about DHOs, thinking about press defense. No, I think I was a kind of a little bit more in the moment. Kyle Shanahan, one of a kind. There's no doubt about that. But as for the updates with the Niners, still not a ton to report on Brandon Ayuk. It looks like they're getting closer and closer to a deal. If you look at some of the reports that are out there, Adam Schefter had an updated report today. But look, there's so much reporting on this. It's been going on for so long. We're not going to know what's true and what isn't true until it actually happens. There's all these reports saying the Steelers might not have offered enough. And you get my drift. The bottom line is, I think we all know Brandon Ayuk, for the 49ers to have the best shot at winning the Super Bowl this year, they got to have him in camp. More importantly, Trent Williams as well. We're not going to do a 20-minute 49ers segment on that, but I do think that it's notable that Kyle Shanahan had no updates. Yes, that's right. No updates on either player in his news conference today. I'm sure we'll be hitting that a little bit more tonight at 8 o'clock with Grant. And if you weren't a part of the conversation last night, it was really interesting because we started to talk about bowl season and NIL and how players last year, if they weren't playing in one of the college football playoff games, they were pulling out of bowls because the transfer portal runs almost concurrent with that back end of bowl season. So you saw teams like Notre Dame starting backup quarterbacks, and you saw other schools where guys were not playing. So the bowl games became glorified spring scrimmages with guys that were not getting reps in the season. And then Scott, I believe it was Scott who called the show, my fellow Aztec alumni. He played football at San Diego State, didn't realize he was a kicker. Now, that was kind of interesting. He was a kicker back in the day for SDSU, but he was on a full scholarship, and he talked about some of the struggles that he went through on a full scholarship. Some of the limitations, that's when pay was not allowed in college football, although there were always little ways around the system. Let's put it that way. I have some stories that certainly I can bring up and talk about here in a little bit, which I'll get into because I do want to talk college football and the NIL system and a GM at Alabama. Incredible. Peter, thoughts on the players invited to the Kings camp? Isaiah Thomas, Juan Toscano Anderson, Tony Bradley, and Lonnie Walker. I'm going to save my thoughts, and we're going to kick that to Jerry because it's a regular part of the offseason to host some of these workouts. The Isaiah Thomas one is interesting because the Kings don't appear to really need any help at that position as we sit today, but you never know. I mean, he is stuck around the league. Last year, I saw him personally down in the G League, trying to grind his way back up. Before you know it, he gets a contract with Phoenix to finish out the season. So who knows? But we're going to ask Jerry about that as well. Bain also getting a question in the chat for Jerry. I will tag these, make sure that we can get to them. Hopefully, Jerry going to be joining us about 2:30 Pacific. He's usually a little bit early. So really, Jerry could show up at any time and we'll start off that segment. We do have the top 5 hardest schedules in the NBA identified. And it's a little surprising, believe it or not, the Kings schedule was not one of them, which we've talked about. According to different websites, it varies anywhere between 9 and 11, depending on the metrics that they're using. But what is interesting is every team in the Pacific Division, outside of the Kings and the Lakers, are in the top 5 of the hardest schedules in the NBA. Does that mean the Kings are getting a little bit of a break? I don't know. But all that, again, we will go over for Jerry. You can put your questions in the chat. Speaking of college, I want to bring this up really quick because this is a tournament that is close to my heart. When I was at SDSU, the team got to participate in the Maui Invitational. It was quite the experience. We all know what happened in Maui last year with the wildfires, just complete destruction. And the Invitational was held last year. However, it was held on the Big Island. The Maui Invitational is returning to Maui with a bang. So happy to report that your teams for the Invitational this year: Memphis, UConn, Colorado, Michigan State, Auburn, Iowa State, Dayton, and UNC. The Maui Invitational usually has a pretty damn good lineup, and that is a strong one right there. Anytime you get UConn to make that trip, anytime you get UNC to make that trip, incredible. And it's right around Thanksgiving. They do such a great job, by the way, the tournament, of accommodating the players and their families. And I'm only speaking to it from back in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, I believe was the year that we were there. And they made it so comfortable. I mean, it's not hard to be comfortable when you're on the island of Maui, but being away from your family, usually being, off the mainland, Thanksgiving is a pretty big holiday for people here in the States getting together, and being able to do that over there while competing in a basketball tournament. Really cool. So can't wait for it to return to the Maui Civic Center. And by the way, the Maui Civic Center is a tiny little gym. It is nothing more than a high school gym. I kid you not. Go watch it on TV, but there is something nostalgic about big time college basketball being played in a smaller gym like that. Yeah, they've got the college court, which is a little bit longer. Some of you may or may not know that. That's all laid out well and fine, but then it's walls. You got the walls behind the hoops, which really cool. Really cool. Check it out. That is returning in November. Can't wait for that. There's a lot of other news going on as well. Did you hear about Tua in his comments on ex-coach Brian Flores? That was interesting because Tua is not usually the type to go in, but he had some strong things to say about how he was coached by Brian Flores early in his career. We can talk about that. And again, Jerry Reynolds joining us here at about 2:30. Can't wait to talk to him with the Kings and the strength of schedule. So I want to get really quick before Jerry gets in. I do want to talk about this for a second. So Mike Gundy, head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yes, he is best known for his take where he throws in a garbage and then drops a but he's a hell of a football coach. He has been with that program for a very long time. He was holding a press conference just the other day, and Hawk Tua or that Tua? Well played, Bane. Well played, my man. Fair enough. Fair enough. She has been in the news. She has been a topic of conversation. And hell, if the Mets run her out on camp day when you're hosting over 2,000 children and they run her out for the first pitch, you can bring those jokes in here all day. I'm good with it. And no, I'm not going to ask Jerry about Hawk Tua, Bane. So keep that question out of the chat. Take your fingers off the keyboard right now and hit delete. Anyways, getting back to Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy was trying to hold a press conference talking about What's going on? It is week 0 in college football. If you didn't know, it's going to be Florida State and Georgia Tech matching up in Dublin, Ireland. Should be an exciting matchup. Remember, Florida State, now they lost a ton of players to the pros. And that obviously is going to have an effect on their roster, but they've been a team that's really built themselves up predominantly through the transfer portal. They've done that again this year. Georgia Tech, don't know much about them. So all I know is I'm happy to have football back on a Saturday. We don't realize how good we have it from September to about January. You have football usually wall to wall Saturday and Sunday. Then you mix in the baseball playoffs. Then the King season starts. It's just a beautiful time of year. Then for me personally, fall is the best season. To me, fall is the absolute best. The weather's turning. The holidays are right around the corner. Some of you are into Halloween. That's always a lot of fun. And we've got the people down the street in our neighborhood that give the full-size candy bars. So you got to get there early. Like, you got to get there while the sun is still up. But yes, fall to me is where it's at. So getting back to Mike Gundy. Yes, I know. I'll do it to myself. I'm talking about candy. So Mike Gundy wanted to talk football, but the reporters wanted to talk about NIL. They wanted to talk about some of the players and the processes of getting them in, the negotiations around the NCAA settlement that is still pending. Remember, there's going to be a lot of money distributed to the different member schools in the NCAA, which will then filter down to current and past athletes. At least that is how it is laid out. So finally, Mike Gundy put his foot down.
And, the business side of what we do now is we have to have those conversations with them. Tell your agent to quit calling us and asking for more money. It's non-negotiable now. Start again in December.
Tell your agent to quit calling us and asking us for more money. In college football, doesn't it feel weird to call it college football? This is pro football, and you'll get my point in a second. But Mike Gundy was pushed again on that point. Here's his follow-up.
All the money stuff and NIL and all that.
It's out.
It's interesting and all that, but
that's what I told the players.
You can just.
There's no negotiating now.
You can just.
Portal's over.
You can enjoy,
all negotiations history. Now we're playing football.
You can.
The portal's over. No negotiation. Now we're playing football. Is it really that easy, though, to turn that page when you're dealing with kids that just became adults? Think about it. Most guys coming in as freshmen, 18 years old. I don't think it's that easy to separate it. If you're a pro athlete, that's a completely different story. You are a professional. Now, we can make an argument. We can make a strong argument that these guys are already professionals in college football. But then as I go to ESPN.com earlier today, my eyes, I had to do one of these, y'all. I'm like, wait, am I reading that right? Bama? GM? What? Yes, Bama, Alabama football general manager Courtney Morgan has agreed to a new precedent-setting contract with the Crimson Tide following a summer approach from USC. Summer approach from USC, meaning he's been serving in a position similar to this, if not this exact position, already coming into this offseason. Morgan will earn an average of $825,000 annually under a 3-year contract, a deal that bolsters his place as college football's highest paid front office figure. So you might ask yourself, what exactly does Courtney Morgan do for the Alabama Crimson Tide? Well, guess what? I've got the answer for you, and it's directly from Courtney. Here it is.
For the people that don't understand, as the general manager, what is your job and what is the function? Because we keep hearing about this position, and it's become really important here in college football lately. What does the general manager do?
I think the 50-foot view answer is just to bring together elite individuals in the building that can help lead the direction of what we're trying to do to win a national championship. It changes everywhere I go. There's more resources here in Alabama, so I was able to bring more people in. There are more talented individuals because we have more resources, more bigger budget. So I was able to go get, Aaron Hodges from TCU, who was at Ohio State. I was able to get Jatavis Sanders over at NC State, and Tony Jones. I was at Michigan with him. Bring Jared McElwain. We have Bob Weldon, who was already here. So I was able to, come in and build a team. So first and foremost, build the infrastructure of the department and have visions for how I see the day-to-day recruiting department being ran. Then secondly, it's roster management, right? Understanding now you have to do a lot of projecting. So always projecting the future of the roster while constantly, consistently evaluating the current roster, right? I oversee the evaluation and the recruiting process, two different things. You got to evaluate, then you got to, like you said, smother, you got to go get them.
Yeah, I'm taking a second here. This is pro football. It's pro football. And granted, as I read this more, the Alabama trustees have to approve this position. And you might wonder where the money comes from that Courtney has to try to get these players to come to Alabama. Not that Alabama needs many extra selling points to go play football for the Crimson Tide, but the money comes from the boosters. It comes from the programs. And so I get this is the new way that college football operates. I don't have a huge problem with it. I told you the problem that I had was drop the student athlete. These guys are athletes that go to class because they have to. I mean, I don't know how you incorporate that into a simpler phrase, but that's what these guys are. They are not student athletes. They are athletes that are forced to go to class. Now, here's where the big discussion comes into me. The NCAA. We've talked at length over the last couple weeks about what the hell does the NCAA do anymore? Like, seriously, what do they do? First off, you've got Congress down their throats because they feel that the NCAA and its structure violates federal antitrust laws. There might be something very, very well to that. But the NCAA says you cannot pay a player to get them to come to your school. In fact, there's current investigations going on. There cannot be a direct transaction that correlates for an athlete's commitment to come to the institution. So the question that I have is, how the hell are you going to be able to enforce that? And you already know my stance that the NCAA is useless. They need to just go away. Basically, all they are is trustees negotiating TV deals, running a tournament in March Madness, and distributing the money. That's really what they do. You saw what Michigan did with the punishment that was handed down to Jim Harbaugh. They said, all right, yeah, we don't really care. Jim Harbaugh's attorney called it a kangaroo court in the NCAA. And then Michigan made Jim Harbaugh the honorary captain for week 1 of the season. Now they walked it back. Jim Harbaugh's not going to be there, which breaks my heart because I thought it was incredibly fitting and I was all for it. Absolutely all for it. Shove it in the NCAA's face because they have made student athletes long before NIL suffer. And I suffer is a strong term. Scott last night talked about walking around campus and looking for loose change so he could have an extra couple bucks to get, a cheeseburger at McDonald's, I think is the example that he used. Players back in the day, not allowed to work. You cannot work if you are an NCAA athlete. Now, that's a little bit of a blanket statement because there is some wiggle room there. There's a couple loopholes, but you're not allowed to work for most athletes. So I can speak to my time at San Diego State and what I saw. Jay brought up the different income levels and backgrounds of different students that may be playing college athletics and how they may value money over the education. And I understand both sides of those, but one of the best learning experiences I had by far was being in the locker room of a ton of different personalities from different backgrounds, different races, different cultures, different beliefs, being in a mini melting pot that's thrown together and is supposed to come together as one, as a family, because you spend so much time with those guys. Let me lay out an off-season day for you. And anybody that's played college athletics, hop in. If you want to share your story, tell me I'm wrong, but I'm going to lay out an off-season day for you, at least at San Diego State. You wake up, you go to your morning conditioning, usually about 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. Then you have study hall. Then you go to class. Then you have weight training. Then you may have one-on-one, we called them one-on-one workouts. You could have up to 3 athletes at the workouts with a coach. Stupid rules around that stuff. And then you would have tutoring, study hall after that. So you're committing 8, 9, 10 hours of your day to that sport. And that's in the off season. We're not even talking about once you get into the regular season when you're traveling. And it's not like going down the road to the high school 10 miles away. You are traveling across state lines. You are flying halfway across the country. And so it gets even a little bit crazier then. So you don't have time to work. But some of the guys that I lived with that came from South Central LA, that came from difficult backgrounds, not a lot of money, but great basketball programs. I mean, really good basketball programs, but inner city programs. They were on full scholarship at San Diego State, and that full scholarship was not enough. They also had to apply for Pell Grants. Yes, Pell Grants. So even though they were on full scholarship, they were still getting grant money, which they needed to have. I don't want to say a normal college life, but to have a couple extra bucks in your pocket. And certainly there are those that abuse the system and would find other ways to get extra money. And I likened it to this back in the day. As long as you were going 70 and a 65 as a program, you were going to stay off the NCAA's radar. As soon as you start going 85, 90, and you're getting flashy, you're giving the cop the middle finger as you go by, that's when the NCAA pulls you over. And so, they got what they got, but it was just to, be able to do some of the things that college kids should be able to do in your spare time. So I go back to the original question with college football and all this. Doesn't it seem like it's a little bit out of control when you have coaches who should be preparing for the season, yet instead they're addressing, agents calling them? I mean, the thought of kids having agents that young at 18 years old in a college program blows my mind. You are already going through a culture shock as an athlete when you get to a college program, meeting so many people, having all these different elements injected into your life that you didn't have in high school. And then you've got an agent. And the big question becomes, is that agent really working in your best interest? How many horror stories do we hear about pro athletes that get taken advantage of? And those are guys that have been through the college process, that have been warned about those things, gone to mandatory classes and training to look out, and they still get taken advantage of. So I just feel like this system is moving a little bit faster than everybody can keep up with. And I'm worried about what it can do to college football because bowl season, we look forward to it. And I get the playoffs expanding, but I guess the simple answer, excuse me, is move the transfer portal, but that doesn't necessarily work because you also have the recruiting cycle. That was brought up last night. Those two processes need to play out at different things, and they affect the way that they're not mutually exclusive. One affects the other. So there's no simple answer, and I'd love to get your guys' take on all this, but it is really interesting to me what college football is dealing with. And I really do want to see what this year's bowl season outside of the playoff is going to look like. Baki, what's up, my brother? How you doing? He's saying hi to John as well. Johnny, no worries, man. No contempt today. You're good by me. El Cap, what's your favorite college football team? The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. I am a Notre Dame guy through and through. Actually, I don't want to sound I don't want to get on my high horse here, but we had an extended relative. I think a couple times extended that was a very famous quarterback at the University of Notre Dame. And so ever since that, although I never met him, I mean, I think he was super old by the time that I even was old enough to talk and walk. But that's when we started watching the Irish. And for those that don't know, I am a huge Rudy guy. That is like my favorite movie of all time. And that's coming from somebody that appreciates the Will Ferrells of the world, the Vince Vaughns, the Adam Sandlers. I love all those movies. But if you have to make me watch one movie, it's Rudy. And in a way, Rudy kind of is a tale of my life. It sounds really funny, and not on that scale, but there are a lot of parallels with that. And the first time that Grant had me on his podcast as a guest, he asked me to describe myself in one word. And I said Rudy. So anybody that's been listening to the King's Court from day one, I've used that analogy before, but Notre Dame Fighting Irish, that is our football team for sure. We are looking forward to the one and only Jerry Reynolds joining us here in just any time. Jerry should be here any minute. Looking forward to having him on, talking some Kings basketball, talking the schedule. We will also take your questions. Make sure that you give us a call. If you want to get in with Jerry, happy to bring you up on the screen. Just make it brief. Get in, get out. Just because I want to be respectful of his time, but gonna have a good conversation. 63 days away from NBA basketball. Talked about the strength of schedules already in the NBA, the top 5 in the NBA. And believe it or not, as I said at the top, the entire Pacific Division, minus the Kings and the Lakers, are in the top 5 of most difficult schedules in the NBA. All right. Let's see. Jerry is having a little bit of issues with the link. I'm going to get this out to him really quick. So he is going to be primed and ready to go. Peter, he is policing the chat. I love it. Peter's like, hey, Bane, are you in the fantasy football league? Get in the fantasy football league. If you don't know what we are talking about this. We are doing our third annual Pick'em League through Yahoo Fantasy Football. We would love to have you join. It is completely free. We are picking every game against the spread. You can test yourself against me, Grant, everybody else that joins, and Vegas. We're going against the spread. Not the easiest thing to do. Peter was our winner last year. He's the winner of the gift card. I believe it was $100. We have another $100 gift card this year from Jay and Kathy Griffiths. Also, we've gotten some other donations of gift cards, which will be added to that. So Like I said, it is through Yahoo. You're not going to get any crazy spam emails from us, but we would absolutely love to have you join the league. And by the way, if you come up with the most unique, I want to see the most unique league or unique team name. Whoever I deem to have the most unique team name, you are going to win a Bennett's gift card compliment of me. So get your team names in there. And Haunted Horse, I saw yours. It's just Haunted Horse. That's not going to do it, buddy. You're going to have to do better than that. Not that I would give Haunted Horse the gift card. He's from Portland after all. And he tried to crash the show yesterday. Did anybody see the tech issues that he caused? I put his website up on the screen, and what the hell happens? The show quits working. Not a surprise at all. All right, we are going to get this off to Jerry, and hopefully that works. Sorry, doing two things at once, producing and hosting the show. Get active in the chat. Get your questions in there for Jerry as well. And we will get to as many as possible, especially if they are related to the schedule, the news that I believe, was it Peter who talked about it, that the Kings are going to be having some open veteran workouts coming up here in the coming days. Isaiah Thomas going to be a part of those workouts, among others. Remember, Juan Toscana Anderson was a King briefly. For those that didn't know either, Scal Labissiere is going to be rejoining the Stockton Kings this year. I'm excited about that. I think Scal is a very important piece to what Stockton is trying to do, getting guys ready for the main roster here in Sacramento. Scal not only gives you a veteran presence of somebody that's been in the league, but he can play the role pretty damn well for the G League that Domas plays, and not so much on the boards, getting crazy, and ones, trucking through contact, but he can simulate a lot within the offense, what you get with Domas when Domas runs that DHO, and also the pick and roll too. Scal does a very good job of that. So very, very happy to have Scal as part of the Stockton Kings again this year. I'll be covering them closely as well. We are still hoping to have Gabriel as our guest, the Stockton GM this season or last season. There are some changes going on with Lindsey Harding heading to JJ Redick's staff in LA, but Gabriel Harris, hoping that he will still be able to join us. That's obviously pending his schedule. I've been in touch with him. I know Alberto has been asking about that. So we are waiting for the one and only Jerry Reynolds getting ready to join us here on the Kings Court. Can't wait for that. Tua, not Hawk Tua, Miami Dolphins. He's never going to hear the end of that, by the way. He has not gone through a season since she popped up. That's going to be brutal. He had some interesting comments about his ex-coach, Brian Flores. I want to play those for you right now and get your take on that. Here's Tua.
Simplest terms. If you woke up every morning and I told you you sucked at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad, and you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, it's basically been 2 years of training that out of not just me, but a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year.
Really interesting comments. That's not what we want. It's not all that obscure for coaches to coach players hard, but we've seen a fine line with that in the past couple of years with players pushing back and, stepping forward, opening their mouths and talking about those experiences. So we all know what Tuesdays are made for around here. They are our weekly chats with Jerry Reynolds. We have Jerry queued up. We can't wait to have him join us. A lot has happened. We are 63 days away from the start of the NBA season. We bring in the one, the only Jerry Reynolds. Welcome to the show today, Jerry.
Well, great to be with you, Ryan, as always, and with the Kings fans and sports fans in general. And, can't wait for the NBA season, but, NFL coming up pretty soon, college football. We got a lot of golf. So, WNBA, really enjoyed watching Caitlin Clark and some of the top players in that league as well. So, there are other things to watch, but nothing like the NBA. Nothing like the NBA.
Nothing like the NBA. You're right, though. We're turning that corner from that slow season to now. There's going to be so much for us to choose from, almost too much to watch, Jerry. So really looking forward to that. We were talking about Tua and how he was coached before you came on the show, but we have a lot of questions already in the chat for you. Okay. I want to start off with a couple of them, and then we'll get into our conversation because there's definitely some stuff that I want to hit with you. So Peter brought up, Jerry, the fact that the Kings are going to be working out some free agent veterans. Is that a normal thing every year, Jerry? And what's the team looking for in a situation like this?
Well, I think, maybe just catch lightning in a bottle. I'd be surprised if much comes from it. Don't get me wrong. It'd be, Isaiah Thomas obviously is an all-time favorite as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But I just don't see probably anyone that they can sign right now as a free agent that would really get playing time on the team. So it's just taking a look at guys who probably asked to be looked at, as they just have workouts and things. So probably, it's one of those things that probably not nearly as much to it as some of us would like to believe.
So interesting. I've never heard that. Guys will ask to have a team take a look at them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Guys that, really are without contracts, they will gladly go work out. It's just the opposite of the draft. When guys think they're going to be drafted higher than what your pick is, you can't beg them enough to get them to work out for you. And then when they don't have a job, then they'll go anywhere, anytime.
Got it.
Jerry, the real world, as it were, as most fans understand the real world.
Yes, exactly. I can tell you have done your homework. You only took that one day off that we talked about. You are prepared today, my friend.
I am, boy, the dog days of August certainly are, just tough for basketball because not much happened. And like I say, when this is a story, it's August.
It is August. There is a little bit of a bigger story out there. The schedule was released last week, Jerry. I know that you say every team plays 41 on the road, 41 at home, but any thoughts on the Kings schedule as you look at it?
Well, first thing I'd say, actually every team didn't play 41 at home and 41 on the road. The Lakers always played 43 at home because
really?
Because they played the Clippers twice.
Ah, great point.
So that was always kind of missed in that equation. Now this year they'll play 41 just like everybody else. But as to your point in the schedule, the Kings, I think the Kings schedule is a little tougher than some, not as tough as others. I know people like to make a lot of it and, how they start, where the road trips are. And it's just hard to evaluate the schedule until you start playing it, because some teams you think are going to be real good, you might find out early in the season they're not the team you thought they'd be for various reasons. So all of a sudden that tough game isn't so tough. And then conversely, it's like Houston of last year. You assumed that was a walkover,
Right.
but they were a good team. Surprised not just the Kings but everybody else, and you found out, well, no, this is not the Houston of last year. This is a different version, and so that's why it's hard to somebody say, well, it's the 16th toughest schedule or the 5th toughest. That's just whistling in the dark, really.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about Houston because remember, De'Aaron Fox rolled his ankle right before those back-to-back games in Houston, which brings me to my next point. You played New Orleans twice, back-to-back in New Orleans, and I believe 3 times the season series in less than 8 or 9 days. You play the Lakers 3 times in less than 10 days. Do you have a problem with that?
Not really. I mean, you it's one of those things, you're going to play them all. So it might work to your advantage. You catch these teams early. That may be good for the Kings. So
Sure.
You just, like I say, I just think it's one of those things worrying about ahead of time. You might as well worry about a meteor hitting Golden One.
Right.
The Kings, if they're really good, they can beat those teams if they're playing at their best. And if they're not playing at their best, they'll lose to those teams, some of them. So, it's like, well, you play Lakers 3 times. Well, would you rather play the Celtics 2 times early?
Sure.
Probably not. So, 41 at home, 41 on the road. You're going to have some back-to-backs. You're going to catch the schedule, and the NBA will win you games because you catch teams when you're rested and they're on back-to-backs or have injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to lose games to teams when they catch you tired and injured and on back-to-back or something. Certainly circumstances. So I just say I know one thing absolutely sure: the best teams will win the most games.
That's usually how it works out and how it should be, Jer.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair plan. 82 games will, it basically gives you a chance for all those things to work themselves out.
No doubt. Everybody ends up
20-game schedule. That might not be the case.
Exactly. And so there's been a ton of different comments and questions that we've gotten. One that's come up a couple times since the schedule came out was, how much do the coaches and the players pay attention to the schedule, or do they really pay attention to the schedule?
I think they pay attention, and they look at, pretty much what as fans might look at. Okay, where are the back-to-backs, the long road trips, what are home stands, what do they look like? Get a general feeling and say, well, this could be a problem here. We play at home on one night and we fly to Denver on a back-to-back. Well, that's a tough back-to-back. Not, regardless of the fact that Denver's really good. So, as a coach, you look at players, probably not so much. They know, hey, I got to be ready to play every night. And that's
sure.
And, fly me to where we play and I'll be ready type thing.
Absolutely. El Cap hopping in with a question. Jerry, do you have any favorite basketball go-to moves you used or NBA players used? LeBron's moves or bag is so limited. Okay, so do you have any favorite moves that players use these days, or did you have a favorite move as the Caucasian Comet?
Well, it's interesting because this goes back to 1962. So, but I developed a step back shot, when people didn't really do that.
Sure.
Because I was small and I could get it, get the shot off. And then, of course, the NBA, it was probably into the middle 80s before you saw guys do that. And actually, I think Larry Bird was probably the first guy to do it as a really part of his repertoire. And now, everybody does it. And of course, now it's not just a step back, it's a little hippity hop back.
Yes.
Which James Harden does, gets about 3 steps in there. And, anyway, that was, it's one of those deals at that time, I got travel called on me sometime, which it really wasn't.
Right.
A step forward or a step back. But anyway, so that's that. But yeah, obviously the step back three is interesting. The killer crossover kind of thing that Tim Hardaway I thought made popular. Obviously Allen Iverson. Now you see, just about every guard has that as part of their repertoire.
Sure.
So that's what happens. Each generation learns from the one before, and then what was difficult or unusual. It's like Earl Monroe, the great Earl Monroe. He had the spin dribble. Well, he was the first guy that did that. That was back. I remember seeing him in college in late '60s, early '70s, whenever it was. But now every good high school guard does that.
It's part of the fundamentals.
Part of the fundamentals. So, and I always remember Earl getting travel called early in his career on that shot or that move because officials just weren't used to it.
Sure. They used to hammer into us, Jerry, the sweep, where you do your pivot and you sweep it across your shoelaces and get the ball out in front of you. Now it's the Euro step as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the Euro step, that's it's fairly recent phenomenon. Now it's one of those things to where every good player does it. And,
sure.
But so that, that's the thing about the game. There's always, always changes, always guys finding ways to get better, finding new ways to score. I've always thought one of the things that's been lost was the half hook. Back when I came to the league, just about every big player, they didn't really shoot the sweeping hook, but they would really shoot the half hook, not just at the basket, but 7, 8, 10 foot out. And it was a very difficult shot to get to. The great Dave Cowens and guys like that, that was their shot.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as difficult to guard as a sky hook by Kareem, but everybody had that in there. And any good player had that as part of it, and we don't see that as much. It's step back jumpers, try to dunk, the things a little more like that.
Yeah, it's some of the easier things that seem easy, Jerry. I tell people all the time, if you're in a gym and you're practicing on your own, step behind the 3-point line, take a pump fake, and then shoot the ball and see how difficult that is. Those little things make a huge difference.
Oh, they really, that's a great point. That's all the difference, for a guy, to be able to pump fake and still be comfortable, and a pump fake show the ball.
Exactly.
A lot of young guys, they'll fake with their heads, but eyebrow fakes aren't really as good as showing the ball.
That's right.
And the defender will kind of follow the ball, and so that pump fake. DeRozan's one of the very best, at that part of the game. Has the up fakes. I think, of course, DeMontis is excellent at that as well. He really show you the ball a couple of times trying to get a reaction.
Yeah, and imagine if he works in that jump shot from the mid-range. He doesn't have to shoot a lot of them. We've had this conversation. Doesn't have to. He's just got to be able to step into it confidently, Jerry.
Yeah, just take it when it's there, wide open. Just no hesitation, take it. And of course, he's one that I've seen him do it. He's got a decent little half hook, but he almost as always turns it down so he can pass the ball out to a perimeter shooter. And that's. It's a catch-22. Do you want the easy three in the corner, or do you want to take almost a sure half hook two? I don't know. It's in today's game, I think most coaches would say we want you to spray it out there and shoot get that easy three. But anyway.
Doesn't it feel like that there's going to be a little bit of a counterbalance this year? Because you make a great point about how many times do we hear from Mike Brown, spray it out, spray it out, spray it out all last season? But there's an argument to be made. You're almost wasting the talents of DeMar DeRozan if you're spraying the ball out.
Well, I think you've got to, I've always said, I thought one of the great things about the championship teams, the Warriors for several years, they were a great 3-point shooting team, but they really would take the ball to the basket, or in Curry or Clay's, they would gladly escape dribble and take an open 15-footer.
Sure.
Because that's a 90%, 80% shot for them. And not enough teams, as opposed to Houston at that time with Harden and those guys, where, they'd turn down open 15 footers to take tough threes. Well,
Yes.
and that's how you get beat. I mean, still, to me, it's still a simple game to where what you want is the best high percentage shot you can get. And often it's the three, but maybe even equally often it's a really high percentage 12, 15 footer.
No doubt, no doubt about it. And that's a part of the game that the Kings, although last year they were pretty good from 2-point range, but
Yeah.
they didn't take that many. They were in the bottom third of the league in attempts.
Yeah, I thought they hurt themselves that way. And I think that's where DeRozan will really help is because
Yeah.
he'll do that and he'll draw fouls. We've talked about this before. I mean, he gets to the line, and the Kings really weren't very good at getting to the line, and they're not very good at making them when they did.
Yeah.
But I think with DeRozan, I think he'll get the team in the penalty sooner and more often.
Agreed.
And that makes so much difference. And that to me is like a Celtics or some great team is the Browns and the Tatums. They draw fouls. They get to the line, and then pretty soon, you have your periods where you're not making shots, but you're still making points because you're in the penalty.
That's right. And teams can usually take less risks once you hit that penalty. They're not going to be as aggressive in certain situations. On top of that, you're taking players off the floor. If you get guys in foul trouble, that only benefits the Kings.
Yeah, I didn't think it's an accident in a way that Boston and Dallas played in the finals because Dallas had their two guys that drew a tremendous number of fouls and were able to get to the line when they kind of had cold shooting stretches and they beat Minnesota or Oklahoma City because they generally got the line more.
Yeah, it's a great point. Don't forget about the free throws in this 3-point era.
No.
Ed asks, how do you guys feel about Kevin Huerter? Jerry, I'll let you start.
Well, I think Kevin's going to have a bounce back year. He needs to have a bounce back year. He's an asset. He wasn't nearly as good last year. We've drummed that into the ground, but in my opinion, I still think he'd be better off for the Kings coming off the bench. I like Keon Ellis and De'Aaron together. I think defensively we saw not just Keon's defense, but De'Aaron's defense picked up tremendously. I thought they were such a nice match. And I think with Kevin coming off the bench, and since you've got a DeRozan, really Kevin could probably back up DeRozan some at the three. You're going to be small anyway, and as well as two. So he could kind of be a 2-3 guy coming off the bench as well as Monk. So now all of a sudden, as we've talked about, the bench last year wasn't really that good.
No.
If Monk wasn't good, you didn't get a lot. And so this is, to me, would have a chance of really improving your bench and making, to where if you don't have DeRozan on the floor or De'Aaron on the floor, you might still be just as good offensively for periods.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. If Kevin Huerter can't get going with this iteration of the Kings, it's probably not going to work with the Kings. I say that because if he comes off the bench, Jerry, the looks that he should get theoretically are the ones he was getting in 22-23, where he's spotting up or he's coming off of a DHO. I mean, teams completely changed the way they guarded him there. Not to mention, I like his mindset in the games that he's come off the bench. And those were times that he was struggling as well. It just feels a little bit more loose. You don't feel like you got to get him involved right away in the starting lineup. So to me, I think it's a big bounce back year with what they have on the floor. Him and Malik on the floor, I think, could be a difficult matchup for some teams.
Yeah, I do too. And he'd be going against sometimes a lesser defender, less preparation, and I mean, Kevin, and of course, you haven't forgot, like I have. I mean, Kevin's really best year was the year in Atlanta where they went to the Eastern Finals. Now, he came off the bench there.
Sure.
And he was terrific off the bench.
That's right.
I think he had a 27-point game against the 76ers in a Game 7. So it's something he's done. And I just think I just like Keon Ellis and I realize that he doesn't have the offensive ability overall, but to me, he's a better fit because, with DeRozan and De'Aaron and Keegan, you got three scorers out there. and of course Domas can score, but he really is
Bingo.
looking. He's looking to find other guys, and so Keon is almost the perfect guy, just to blend in, find open spots, and knock down shots. And I think we've seen him do that.
I couldn't agree any more with you. Spot on. All right, Jerry, hard hitting questions here on the King's Court for you.
Ooh.
Really hard hitting questions. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on.
Okay.
They moved. Here we go. This is the hard hitting question. Jerry, which is better, the chicken or the dumpling?
Boy, now that's a tough call. I think it's the dumplings. I like the chicken, but I mean, the chicken without the dumplings, I don't think make it. Now, the dumplings can make it without the chicken.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the way you have to look at it, fellas.
Jerry, I'm with you. When you get the moist, chewy dumpling in the sauce, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. No, it's the creator of all did a good job on that one.
Yeah, the dumpling. Now you can easily ruin the chicken and dumplings by making the dumplings too hard or overcooking them.
Oh yes, Mrs. Reynolds has done that. She's not watching this, so she's up at Tahoe. But no, she no, my late mother made great ones, but bless Mrs. Reynolds' heart, she does a lot of things wonderful, but chicken and dumplings, not one of them.
Not one of them. Hey, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses.
Yes. Play to your strengths, and that's why Keon Ellis has got his, and so we all have to know what our strengths are and our weakness.
Amen. All right, we're getting some more questions in. We've got to the herder one. El Cap. Jerry, do you think the triangle offense would be used in the current NBA?
Oh yeah, it's a good offense. I mean, really, it's the space. It's for space. It's great spacing. I think it could be very effective. Now, it's also true. One of the reasons it was so effective for both the Bulls and the Lakers, they had closers. And I always say the thing, and I'd studied it a lot when Jordan was there, and it was really a great offense for the second units, when Jordan was getting rest, because you'd get great spacing, great ball movement. And certainly Jordan, but in the last 6 minutes, what it really meant was Michael Jordan knew where the other four guys were, and they were out of his way.
Right.
And Kobe, the same thing. In other words, it's not the check wasn't a big part of everything, or Scottie Pippen, but basically it was all about spacing and making sure that when Michael got the ball, he had a live dribble and he knew where everybody was. And is equally important, the defense knew they had to run somebody at him, which of course he'd always find if that happened, he'd find somebody for an easy shot if he needed to.
Yeah. Speaking of that, were you surprised that he dished it to Kerr in the finals?
No, he, as the years went on, he really became, I think just the ultimate team guy. I mean, he knew he was a scorer, but he wouldn't go too much against double teams if he didn't have to. In other words, he could play against them.
Sure.
But he, early on in his career, and he really wouldn't have kicked that ball out like he did late in his career. He'd just go try to score because he was into getting 35, 38 a game, which he could do pretty easy. But later on, Phil was right. Hey, Michael, we can be better with you scoring 30.
Right.
And that's really, and same way with Kobe. I mean, it's not, they had to say, I always say, even the great players have to sacrifice something of their greatness for it all to work.
Absolutely. Speaking of, I want to come back to this in a second, but speaking of sacrifice, Jalen Brunson, we haven't talked about this, took $100 million pay cut to hopefully make that team in New York better around him and win a championship. I love it. What are your thoughts on that, Jerry?
Well, I mean, I do too. I mean, the guy, what a marvelous competitor. I really think Brunson has emerged as one of the top 10 guys in the league, and for him to give up money now, certainly I think there's some options there where he could make some of it back later. But what he's doing is betting on himself, staying healthy,
That's
and
right.
being good, and and then allowing the Knicks some room to do other things. So, yeah, it's a little bit like Tom Brady. The years
Yep.
he was with the Patriots, and you like that to realize, when teams got caps, there's only so much they can do. So, if a couple of guys get all the money, you're pretty well locked in.
Yep, just ask the 49ers. They're trying to figure that formula out right now as we speak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just, it's one thing to get great talent, but great talent wants to be paid like great talent.
Yes.
And then you're up, especially when you have hard caps or luxury tax situation. There is situations that teams just say we got to make tough choices.
Exactly right. I just like the message that it sends. Like, it sends a message that we are ready to win a championship. Like, that is our mindset. And if you come to this team, you better be in that same mindset as well with Jalen doing that. And by the way, there's no shortage of opportunities in New York City to make money off the court either.
Well, he's going to make generational money regardless.
Absolutely.
He already has. But to your point, I mean, I think when your best player really is willing to sacrifice the most, which he really is, and also work the hardest. You always say that your best player is your hardest worker and a good teammate. And I think that was the case with Michael Jordan. He wasn't always the best teammate. He'd get on guys.
Yeah.
But he was the hardest worker. So it's pretty hard for, the Kerrs and the Winningtons and Luke Longleys, in other words, to question much, because they knew that guy was in there
right
working harder than any of them.
Right. Especially when you go to drag Rodman out of a hotel in Vegas during the season.
Well, Rodman's another case. That's a whole nother chapter. I think only Jordan and Pippen and Phil Jackson could have managed him late in his career.
I can't imagine that team now in the age of social media and cameras all around. I mean, it would have been just different. We probably would remember that team differently, wouldn't we?
I think we would. Yeah, you're right. And I'm sure teams of the past a lot of stuff went on that just you let pass. You didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a lot tougher for the individual player today, I think. I mean, there's some good to it. We get a lot of information, but for the star athlete, whatever sport they're in, the media sure makes it tougher, especially when you have so many sites make up stuff.
Or the
clickbait headline, that really, then they'll have a story and there's nothing to what they said in the headline, so it frustrates me that kind of stuff goes on. And, but this is 2024, got to deal with it.
And that is why Jerry is not on social media.
That's one of the reasons. The other is I couldn't figure it all out. I can deal with YouTube and things like that, and I enjoy that. I go down the rabbit hole on YouTube every now and then. But,
it's part of the process, Jerry.
Yeah,
it's in there. It
really is, And so anyway, but.
Love it. All right, we bring in Baki and Tedora really quick. What's up, Baki? You're on with Reynolds.
Baki.
Hey guys, what's up? How are you, Jerry? Nice to see you.
Baki, how you doing? I see a little holy moly Jim Bob Bowley there with you.
Jim Bob Bowley is present.
Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley. Because I will just say, holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
Whoa!
She does it better than I do, so I
look at
getting
that.
Ready.
Yeah, that's
getting warm up.
Yep. Love it.
Love it. That's
okay. We're almost there. September is busy for the tennis and for the beginning of the school. So when we're gonna get to the October, we're gonna be ready.
We sure are. I'll tell you what. I mean, it's great to know that some of the players are already working out, on their own and things, and because it's I know the coaches always liked when they start camp really have the guys basically in shape, and so you don't waste a week just trying to get guys conditioned.
Yeah, just to be as normal as it is. So,
Yeah.
Jerry, I have only one question for you. Do you think that it's possible to have DeRozan? I mean, we live in the time when you see Novak Djokovic is playing with 37, like maybe best tennis of his life. Someone say it's gonna.
Yeah.
Someone says it's best tennis of it. So, is it possible to we have DeRozan who never? He was always only one step to this final chapter. So with all his teams with Toronto and the others, so do you think is it possible to have DeRozan playing the best season of his life ever?
Oh, I do. I do. I mean, I thought he had one of his best years last year. Now, I'm not saying, but certainly there was no slowdown in his career. I think he's become a little bit better deep shooter and a little stronger physically than he was when he was younger. So I really do expect him to have an all-star caliber year. I mean, like he had last year. Can he do it? How many years? I think he's got 2 years on his contract. I think the Kings will be happy with those 2 years, and and that's really about all you can ask. I mean, if he can continue to play at the level he played last year with the Bulls, the Kings, the Kings going to be better. That's for sure.
Gentlemen, there's an argument to be made that DeMar's never been surrounded by this much talent.
No, I think that's true. I mean, really in Toronto, by the time they started putting together, he was part of the reason they were able to, but they traded him to San Antonio. And then, of course, San Antonio didn't really have the talent. The Bulls, at one point, until Lonzo Ball got hurt, looked like they had a chance. But so no, I definitely think this will be the best team he's played on. And to Baki's point, by the way, yeah, Djokovic, without a doubt, is the greatest tennis player to ever live. I just don't think that's even debatable. I love watching him. A lot of people say, well, Nadal or Federer. Well, he's won more majors. He's won a gold in the Olympics. He's beat them head to head consistently. Yep. So I don't know what else you could say. When the guy has done it all, and he's done it more and better than anybody. And, and I've been following tennis a long time, but I've never seen anything like him.
Great point. I was only thinking about having DeAndre Fox, like he's experienced already, like maybe like DeRozan, maybe not the same style of the play. He is another position, but having Fox and Sabonis playing like this, we saw what is the peak of Sabonis and DeRozan. We are waiting for the peak from Keegan. And now having DeRozan and Malik beside, DeRozan can have great energy around him. So maybe he can produce the best season ever, which will bring Sacramento to just quite another story.
Well, I think he can. So. I think the keys is that, as you pointed out, I think DeRozan and Sabonis are who they are. They're at their peaks. Now, the only thing they can do is be a little more productive. And I think that'll happen. They may not score more points, but they'll do it more productively. And I think with Keegan and De'Aaron, I think that both those guys and Malik, they're not at their peaks. I mean, certainly Keegan's got several years, but I think De'Aaron and Malik have both got a couple of years to get better before they're the finished product. So, yeah, it's I'm really excited because I definitely think. We got good attitude guys, and I think each one of them, their stats may not be as great individually, but the stats of the team will be better, and that's the key.
There you go, Baki, Tedora. Thank you both so much. Great holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley too.
Yeah, I love those Kings. They had all the different eras.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
They are the best. It doesn't matter what time it is, Jerry. They are here and watching. Well, on that note, we'll get you out. Thank you so much for making time for us, as you always do on Tuesday. And the schedule. I guess she can have an off hour, but I expect 5 days of hard work.
Yeah, no, I may, I may have to mow the yard later on and when the sun
Okay.
goes down and everything. But then after that, I'll
Okay.
try to get focused back up. I don't want to let you and the fans down.
Oh my gosh, you are the best. By the way, what'd you think of that Mahomes behind the back pass?
Boy, he and Kelsey. I mean, Mahomes though. I mean, he's the best. That's all you can say. He's the
Something
best.
else.
I don't know if the Chiefs can win another championship, but as long as they got him, they got a chance.
You know what? I don't know if I can bet against the Chiefs if Mahomes healthy. I don't care how good any team is. He's just different.
Yeah, and I mean, early in the year last year, I mean, they really weren't a very good offensive team, and they kind of just hung in there, and but they, it's like any championship caliber team that's won championships, like the Patriots of the past, is once they won a couple, they know how to win.
Yeah.
And they know that when they're not good enough, they know why they're not good enough, and so that, yeah, it's I'd love to see the Niners do it. I'm a Chiefs fan, but if Chiefs can't win it, I sure would like to see the Niners get it all. I mean, a fun team, and they deserve it. I mean, they're a franchise that has done a lot of things right recently.
You think Ayuk remains a Niner?
It seems to me like, I mean, he's obviously got another year in his contract, so I don't know what choices he has.
You have to sit out.
Obviously, you can sit out, and that's not going to make him more valuable. That'll make him, he needs to, who's the running back from Pittsburgh a few years ago?
Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, ask him how that worked out. So in my mind, if I'm the Niners, if you've got a price you think is fair, he's under contract, get the best year out of him, and then either you could still offer him more money than anybody else, probably.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, I'm not sure I'd pay him like the very absolute top receivers in the league, because I don't quite think he's done quite enough yet. That's just my opinion. But I think you want to keep him. He's worth a lot of money. But I think in football, it's like, geez, maybe I'm missing something. But when guys are under contract, unless they want to not be paid millions for a year, and with the hope that's going to make them more valuable, I don't know what leverage they have.
Jerry, it's a different animal. I mean, their Players Association agreed to the CPA, but Trent Williams, for instance, he still has 3 years on his deal. So really, it's when the guaranteed money runs out, that's when most of them are looking to get a change, looking to renegotiate, because nothing's guaranteed in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's one thing I do think that, like for guys like Trent Williams, if in my case, I mean, the way I'd look at it is, it's one thing, he's under contract now. If it's a matter of taking some of the numbers that aren't guaranteed, making them guaranteed,
right?
I wouldn't have any problem doing that.
No. But did you see the preseason game? Did you see Brock Purdy rolling out? Oh,
yeah, boy. Yeah. I was going to say Brock may have to chip in what little money he's making.
Yes,
to Trent, because he's gonna get beat up if they don't get the big fella in there.
He's gonna pull a Jalen Brunson. That's what he's gonna do. Jerry, thank you so much. We'll see you next Tuesday, my friend.
Next Tuesday, buddy.
All right. That is the one and only Jerry Reynolds. Great conversation. As always, tried to get to as many of your questions as we could. We will hold over any of the extra questions. I saw a couple more in there. The shooting. See, it's one of these things where you got to weave it in the right way. You want a good flow. You want a conversation. So I will bring that up next week. And I want to bring up the WNBA too. There's a lot of people saying this Caitlin Clark, and Jerry, very close with Larry Bird. There's a lot of people saying this Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese stuff is mirroring in similarity to what went on with Magic and Bird. And for me, I can't really wrap my head around that quite yet. I mean, because you look at Magic, you look at Bird, And I didn't live through that era, but certainly I've read about it. I've heard the stories. I've talked to Jerry. I've seen the documentaries. But to think like you can put that type of comp on those two yet, and Caitlin Clark only a couple of texts away, by the way, from getting a mandatory suspension from the WNBA. So really, really good stuff with Jerry Reynolds. El Cap, we were wrapping up. That's one that I will definitely put in next week. Where do you rank the Kings closing five? Fox, Monk, DeMar, Murray, Sabonis. Man, that is a great question. That could be an entire conversation with Jerry. Off the top of my head, because I'm assuming we're talking about give them the ball, go to work, isolation, you got to get a bucket. I'm going to say DeMar, Fox, Monk, Sabonis, Murray. I think that's how I got to go right off the top of my head. I don't know. Where do all you come out? That's a really good question. Like I said, we will get to that next week. Indeed. Tuesdays are absolutely the best with Jerry joining us. And it is all possible by Bennett's Westside Grill in Rockland. We are brought to you by Brian and the team at Bennett's. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com. You can learn more about all three of their locations. You can also check out their specials. Talked about the 2-course and 3-course dining specials they have right now, but don't forget about brunch. Don't forget about the prime rib. Don't forget about wine and dine Monday. 2 entrees, bottle of wine, $69. Grant and I are going to be at Bennett's over the next couple weeks once he gets into town. So make sure you stop by, let him know that you heard about him here on If You Don't Like That in the King's Court. Any of our programming, Grant and Rhino, we would appreciate it. But huge thanks to Bennett's Westside Grill located in the Blue Oaks Town Center. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com. All right. Another incredible Tuesday in the books with the one and only Jerry Reynolds. It's so Dorian, really quick. Jerry's mom made chicken and dumplings. That was the dish for Jerry growing up. One of the signatures, as he talks about, that his mom just absolutely, it was a classic. And so now there is a place here in town that him and Miss Reynolds will go to enjoy chicken and dumplings, usually on a Monday night before he comes here on a Tuesday. But that's why there's all the chicken and dumplings talk up in the chat. Adam, yes, Brunson is not going to be hurting for anything in New York. Dude is a made man. Patrick, what is up? He is off. Yeah, love having you in here, my man. Patrick, he's a happy man too. Patrick, you guys winning a championship this year? What do you think? Knicks or Celtics from the Eastern Conference? They square off game 1. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, Baki and Tedora are absolutely great. Jerry gets kicked.
Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
Out of the holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley. Kevin, what's up, my man? Sorry you missed it. Go back, watch on replay. We will also, by the way, be back at 8 o'clock tonight. Grant and I doing an open forum show. Still a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to the sports world. We've got football still ramping up. We've got our fantasy pick'em league, which we certainly want you to join. The information is in the ticker below me. And we'll take the show any way that you want to go tonight. Call up, put your questions in the chat. Last night, a lot about college athletics. Tonight, who knows? Probably talking some Niners, probably some more Kings talk. But make it a point to come back and join us at 8 o'clock. It is always a very fun show. Let's see. West is so good. I could see 6 different teams winning, right? The West is pretty damn loaded. And I think the wild card in all of this is the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies are, and it's a really cliche answer, so I'm sorry, but they hold the cards right now in the West. They could either be really good or it could be another rough season for them if Ja can't stay out of trouble, if Ja gets injured, if Zach Edey doesn't pan out. You know where I'm going. Now, the other big wild card in the West to me is the Denver Nuggets. I don't think Denver has the firepower that they had before. Now, they still have one of the best players in the world. You got Jamal Murray, who's a hell of a point guard, but Jamal seems to get hurt. He's good for a couple of injuries a season. Knock on wood. I don't want that to happen to him. But when Jamal Murray is not on the court, that team struggles. And that team lost so much off the bench. With KCP going to Orlando, you lose your first round pick in Holmes, Deron Holmes, due to a torn Achilles. So Denver could take a couple steps back. So who does that open it up for? We will see. Let's see. I could go for some dude. Their prime rib killer, Derek. I'm telling you, absolutely killer. Thank you, Dorian. It is our pleasure. Thank you guys so much for always coming in here, whether it's Jerry Reynolds Tuesday or otherwise. The King's Court, by the way, 2 o'clock the rest of the month. We are not changing times. We are 2 o'clock until the end of the month. And then the first week of September, there won't be any King's Courts, but I will definitely try to still get some audio up on Spotify and Apple. I am going to be traveling to Green Bay, Wisconsin for a week. So taking my annual vacation, looking forward to that. And then it is balls to the wall when it comes to football, basketball. All of our shows will be coming back this season, including pregame, halftime, postgame. It's going to be a fun one. Hopefully we'll have Jerry at halftime. And then don't forget, I believe Sean Salisbury will likely be joining us on Mondays to talk NFL football as well. So a lot happening here on If You Don't Like That. Baki's going to go watch U.S. Open qualifying. All right. Let's see. Patrick, Celtic game at the Garden on my birthday in February. You better get there, my man. We were DMing about some possibilities with Super Bowl too. You're always welcome, Patrick. Always. You know that, dude. Glad your vacation went well. Derek, with the last comment before we get out, Edey looks good, but can he go the season without injury? Will he be as good as he's been hyped? No, I don't think. Excuse me, still coming off the pneumonia. The hype with Edey, I think he's been underhyped to a degree. I'll be honest with you. I think he was drafted in just about the right spot. Now, what was surprising to me was that teams that we thought were going to move up for Klingon did not move up. And so Memphis was trying really hard, and I mean really hard, to get Klingon. Didn't work out. As soon as they knew that Portland was in front of them, Portland had Klingon circled before the NCAA season even started last year. That was their guy. They got their guy. I'm happy for them in that sense. So that's why Edey went, I believe it was 8. But I think in that system that he's walking into, that team is used to playing with a pretty big man. And what I mean by a pretty big man is Steven Adams. That he has kind of anchored that offense, set the picks. He's thick, he's long, he crashes the boards. Zach Edey is a lot of those things. Now, the question becomes, can he play a little bit more up tempo? There's been questions about that. Also, by the way, he can shoot the 3-ball. It's an underreported part of his game. Jerry and I talked about it during the summer after the draft combine. And I'll be interested to see what he does and if Memphis uses him in that way. Certainly, they're going to use him much like Adams was setting the picks for the smaller guards. The thing about him getting injured, he hasn't had a lot of injury problems for being as big as he does. So we will see. It's a different season. Remember, 82 games is not 50. That's a lot more basketball than these guys are used to. So every rookie usually hits the wall or hits some type of a rookie wall once February, March rolls around, especially when you're playing basketball that doesn't matter. So maybe that'll be the case for Edey. Maybe it won't. Klingon, possibly the case there. But we will see. 63 days away from the start of the NBA season. We're kicking it off. Cannot wait. All right. We are going to get out. Grant and I back at 8 o'clock tonight. Can't wait to have him back on the show. Come with your questions. We will definitely bring the content and be ready to go, but we want to get you involved. We love when people call the show. Put your questions in the chat. It'll be a good time, and can't thank Jerry Reynolds enough. What an incredible Jerry Reynolds Tuesday today. That was a lot of fun and a treat. It is not lost on me. I mean, think about this for a second. I'm no different than any of you. Grew up watching Kings basketball. Grew up listening to Grant and Jerry. It blows my mind that Jerry joins this show every Tuesday. It blows my mind. I am so incredibly grateful for him and his friendship, and I'm incredibly grateful for all of you that frequent this show and give it a chance, because we are in the early stages and we are just getting going. It is a mainstay. We are going to be here for a while. So thank you all. Make it a great rest of the day. Tadora, hit me with it one more time.
Holy moly, Jimbaboli.
Grant, Rhino, 8 p.m. open forum. Go Kings, light the damn beam. Court is dismissed.